I think I'm 14 weeks and 1 day today. I think this is always a day out.
Can check.
Yeah, I'm like 14 weeks and 2 days or something. 14 weeks anyway. And I have my lovely husband with me today. It's not normally here on a Wednesday. So basically we had the results from our CVS test through. We've actually had them in bits and pieces. So first we had the news that they had found an expansion on the gene, but they didn't know how big it was, and they needed more time to test that expansion and see exactly how many repeats there were. And we had that number, I think it was about a week ago, and that came in at 1,030 repeats, which unfortunately is really, very high. And it wasn't exactly good news. It wasn't the news that we wanted to hear.
No.
So we were offered an appointment to sort of come in and discuss it in more detail on the Friday, but we had to postpone it until Monday, and that was a very rapid appointment. It was booked the same day, and we went in Monday afternoon and chatted it through with a geneticist. Since then it's just been like a really difficult time. I think personally this is the first day I've felt much stronger and much more able to talk about it without getting upset. Basically I spent all of Monday in tears, and yesterday wasn't that much different. We just both felt really low, because basically what this means is that there's a very strong likelihood that the baby would be born with significant difficulties at birth. So and we don't know what they might be, but normally, or like most typically, babies born with myotonic dystrophy have difficulty breathing, so they need help with a ventilator, and a good majority of those babies don't make it off the ventilator because they are never strong enough to breathe by themselves. And if they do make it out of the neonatal unit, then they would definitely have other difficulties, which could include heart problems, arrhythmia,
skeletal
and muscular problems, problems with the digestion, basically anything. The best case scenario that we're looking at the moment is that the baby would be born okay and would do alright, but they would have juvenile onset, which means that symptoms would come on a lot faster, a lot earlier in life, and they would have significant problems and difficulties.
And I'm right in thinking, isn't it, juvenile is sort of, it can be as young as sort of 5, but you know, generally it's that sort of 8, 9, 10 would definitely be setting in by then.
Yes, we would have definitely noticed something by then.
Unlike yourself, when you only really started to notice things at 16 and they were very, very mild. 16
at the earliest, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is very classic myotonic dystrophy. Symptoms generally come on towards adulthood. My symptoms were earlier than my dad, which makes me think that possibly his repeats are lower,
smaller than yours,
than mine.
That would make sense.
That would make sense, because he only noticed his in his sort of late 30s, early 40s, I think.
Previously we'd been optimistic, at least myself, maybe more so than Jessica, we'd been optimistic about the fact that there was still a chance for a healthy baby. And even if that chance was quite small, we were open to hoping for that and taking that risk and trying to achieve a healthy pregnancy regardless. But I think that was false hope, and that was after the discussion that we had on Monday with Dr. Foltz. We had just had to accept that there was no chance anymore of a totally healthy baby. That's just not possible anymore. It's not that there's only a 1 or 2% chance. It's genuinely not possible.
She felt that there was a very strong likelihood, very, very strong, in a person with that high a number of repeats. They would expect to see significant problems.
She was essentially explaining to us that about 60% of the time they will have congenital myotonia, which would mean that they were having severe difficulties from birth, and they would either have to be on a ventilator in the neonatal ward, until they could breathe on their own, and often they can't. And then the other 40% of the time would mean that they would have the juvenile onset, which would mean...
which still has significant problems.
Absolutely. At 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that would start to set in, and it wouldn't be just like you, where your hands cramp up from time to time and other little niggles. It would be more major.
This would be muscle
issues.
Weakness. This would be perhaps pain and fatigue.
Digestive or breathing issues again.
Breathing issues. And learning issues and cognitive problems.
And maybe one of the bigger things would again be that would be a reduced life expectancy, severely reduced life expectancy.
We would almost certainly outlive them by
regardless.
a very large margin.
Which is not a pleasant thought at all.
No. So I think you felt quite humbled as a result.
Annoyingly so. But, because I'd been holding on to the idea that I could have, a healthy second child. Leo is fantastically healthy. He's above average in every aspect. And, there's nothing I'd want more than to have another child exactly like that. And that's just not...
It's just not
possible
going to happen
anymore
with this pregnancy.
With this pregnancy. It's not to say that it's not possible in the future, and there are other things that we can explore, and that's another video, but...
And we knew that this was a possibility, but we also knew that there was a 50% chance that everything would be fine, and we decided to take that gamble.
Yeah, because we're now in at the subset where, yes, they have the expanded gene, and, and here's how severe it is, and the answer is very severe.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when we were deciding to conceive naturally rather than explore something like PGD, it was a 50-50 shot that they'll have the gene or not.
And it was definitely something that played on my mind a lot. I had a lot of misgivings, but I think I was kind of carried along by John's optimism. There was that chance that everything would be fine.
And even when we got the news that the expansion is there was a shot that they'd just come back and say, it's
really
600.
small.
It's very similar to yourself, and you can expect a similar life to yourself.
Yeah. The doctors are giving us their best educated guess basically, and we have to sort of accept that they do have that knowledge, they do have that data, and they should know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and at the same time that you say it's an educated guess, it's not that they could be wrong, we could have a perfectly healthy child. That's not the case. It's just they can't say concretely how it's going to proceed from there.
And how it will be when they're born.
The only thing that they can say with real certainty is that they won't be a healthy baby.
No, they won't be. They are sometimes able to see it presenting in the womb, most notably towards the later stages of pregnancy. There would be a lot of amniotic fluid because the baby would not be able to swallow properly, which is another issue. A lot of babies aren't able to feed properly, so we might not even be able to feed them ourselves in the beginning.
And then you have a baby who's on maybe a ventilator and some kind of IV drip for food and fluids, and in many ways that's
and stuff, and machines, and
it's a very vegetative state, and it's
very artificial.
If they were born naturally, a couple of 100 years ago, they would have died straight away, and the difference is that modern technology can keep them alive, but to what extent?
Yeah, the options were made quite clear to us. Obviously we do have the option to continue with the pregnancy and deliver the baby when it's born, when it's due, and hope for the best, prepare for the worst sort of situation. Or, with the other option is to terminate the pregnancy, but that is a decision that they would want us to make quite rapidly, and not really dilly-dally too long about, which is really hard because it's such a sensitive and morally grey ethical decision.
It's complicated for sure.
It's complicated, and even I had to ask what is the procedure for termination, and at the moment the only option available to me, because of my condition, but also because of how far along we are in the pregnancy now, the only option is for me to be given medication to make my body contract, make my uterus contract and expel the baby. So that's it. That's all that would happen. And I found that idea really difficult to deal with, because it obviously goes against every maternal instinct that you have as a parent, as a mother. And it feels like it would be incredibly cold and cruel, because there's not even that sort of gentle death of like just giving medication that stops the baby's heartbeat and then deliver it, you know. It's like you just deliver the baby and it dies because it's no longer inside, it's not supported anymore. And that like the other day I wasn't even able to talk about that without tearing up, and like I can feel it now, it's sort of getting to me a bit. But
yesterday and the Monday, it's just been so raw.
It's been really raw. We've really just been reeling and just in a lot of shock, and you know, just trying to do normal day-to-day stuff is really difficult. I think yesterday I felt like I was really weighed down. It was like moving through treacle most of the day, you know, just making yourself get up, do stuff, you know, and Leo has no idea that any of this is going on. So, you know, we have to be kind of normal for him. And yeah, things are really tough right now. It's not that we take Leo for granted at all, you know, we think he's awesome, but I think we just think that he's especially awesome because it could have so easily gone the other way, and I have always felt phenomenally lucky that it didn't go the other way.
Yeah. Because
that would have been a huge shock.
There's definitely a newfound appreciation for that scenario.
He is so healthy, and at the moment there is nothing to say that there's anything wrong with him at all. So I think we probably should wrap this up, otherwise it's just going to ramble on. As usual, I'm always really interested to hear from you guys. If you have any stories of your own, or you know, you just want to leave a comment, or you have a question, you can do so below, and I will read them all, because I always do, and I will get back to them. And yeah, that's all for this week.